It's not often I can say I'm up to modern times when it comes to console modding. In fact, in most cases, when it comes to something new, I'm more like a granddad refusing to let my kids put me in a retirement home. But occasionally, something piques your interest that you just gotta try. And there's been one console that's been calling my name for a very long time. My name is Downing, and today I'd like to present my first Wii portable ever, the G-Boy Wii STONED. More on the name a little later. So what is a G-Boy? Originally, it was an amazing Nintendo Wii portable by Gman mods, which ended up becoming a console mod that really changed the thought process on how portable game consoles could be made in-house. However, nearly 5 years later, this process has gotten so advanced that even experienced modders have given the big fat middle finger to what was required to pull something like this off. And then something happened.
Something that I knew was impossible, but it happened anyway.
An actual G-Boy kit had been made, and not only that, it had one of the most fantastic how-to guides I've ever seen to accompany it. Having tried something similar in the past to produce a kit for a portable N64, the concept always ran into some kind of unjumpable hurdle, and aside from a few beta kits, they never saw the light of day. And though it had been a long time coming, after seeing how popular the G-Boy kits were getting, I decided it was time to finally dive into the Wii portableizing scene. And after having a good conversation with Gunnar, a kit was ordered with a slightly special bonus, if you will. So for the purpose of building this kit, he was kind enough to share his 3D model files so I could create perhaps the first SLA 3D printed enclosure of a G-Boy kit. Now you may be thinking, Downing, what makes you so special? Well, for those who don't know, Gunnar and I go way back in regards to console modding, long before the Wii Portable became the monster it is today. We collaborated on a number of different projects in his early days, which were mostly on enclosure designs, as back then 3D printing hadn't taken over yet. But it wasn't long before he really started to push the limits of the hobby, and is one of the few primarily responsible for the modernization of portable making, and is someone I've been able to call my friend for nearly the past decade. Though the real question is why I'd even want to do this in the first place. The kit did come with a perfectly fine FDM printed enclosure that's worked for everyone else. I of course decided against better judgment. As SLA has its benefits, I knew going into it there was a chance things could go very wrong. This based off the Myths N64, which was my first venture into SLA enclosure printing. And as suspected, a couple problems did arise. So by far, SLA with my Form 3 wins out on the smaller components and the details that go with them. A good example are the RL and Z and power buttons on the G-Boy. The FDM versions that are included in the kit are functional and do the job, but you can see there's no contest when it comes to the detail quality between the two. But this quality does come at a price, and furthermore has limited uses depending on the kind of resin you use. Because, as you can see, the standard grade resin which was used on this enclosure is prone to, well, warpage. Especially on thin, flat walls like the whole freaking exterior of the case. Also, I couldn't use the included mounting screws that came with the kit because though melted plastic is easy to self-thread, cured resin is not. The material is much more dense and in this case, very brittle. There are engineering resins that would have worked out much better, but they pushed the $200 plus line per liter, and having to buy a dedicated $100 resin tank as well really wasn't an option for this build. So again, I find myself in the same situation from 4 years ago, that though SLA's surface finish is incredible, the end result would have been better with an FDM printed enclosure and standard finishing techniques. These combined with the SLA 3D printed buttons probably would have given the optimal result. And that segues to the next unique part of this build, which involved the standard sanding, filling, priming, painting, and clear coating, which is something I haven't seen done very often with the G-Boy kit. And here I learned another valuable lesson that is so basic you would have thought after this many years I would have figured it out. Paint goes bad. And I don't know what it was, but this was the same can of paint used in the Ocarina of Time portable from nearly a year ago, but my guest sitting in a cold basement over the winter didn't do it any favors. And just watching in pure horror as the can laid down a nice first layer and suddenly started spitting solid chunks of whatever all over this beautiful enclosure. I was nearly in tears, and I just unloaded the rest of that can over a 20-hour 3D print, and then stormed off to go play with a chainsaw. But as fate would have it, I caught a much needed break because when I came back I'd noticed that the dried result was not what I was expecting. I did not return to a blotchy mangled mess. Rather a very unique result which I could easily lie about and say, yeah, I meant to do that. Instead of the expected hammered metal texture, I got a very granite gray stone kind of combo, which very shortly led to the name. But little did I know at the time, the real fun was about to begin, and that my skill sets, and more importantly my patience, would be put through a stress test that damn near went off the charts. And that of course was the actual assembly and wiring of the unit. I mean, the actual assembly portion of this was so simple, I really felt like I was cheating. To which I made some comments I probably should have kept to myself, because I was about to find out how far behind in this hobby I really am now. I've been a part of the console modding community for nearly 12 years, and this kit presented challenges I would never have attempted otherwise. Example being wiring 34 gauge wire to microscopic vias on the Wii motherboard. I mean, who does that? And though I did eventually get the hang of it, it took all 12 years of my soldering experience, plus a decent iron and a new microscope to pull it off. But new equipment wasn't the catalyst to getting this built. It was mostly due to the amazing assembly guide that was created to go with it. And really, the only other guides I can think of that could rival this are Prusa 3D printer assembly guides and f***ing Lego. But I would certainly not consider this a beginner's project by any means. This was a good challenge for me though, and I'm glad I was able to complete it. Well, nearly complete. Because I was so eager to close this up, I skipped one of the optional steps in the wiring process. And that was the relocation of the MX chip, which I later found out was needed for playing virtual console games as well as using the system as an emulator. So I'll be opening this thing back up at some point and doing that relocation, but for now, I'm happy with how it came out. So that's all for this video. As always, if you enjoyed, please be sure to like and subscribe, and be sure to check out the links in the video description below. Also, you can come say hi over on my Twitter, Discord, or downingsbasement.com. Thanks again, guys. Take it easy.